This is You Write Her Story on Citizen TV with Plan International and Inua Dada Foundation. Today we're focusing on gender-based violence.
Mimi naitwa Faith Nyamwange. Nilikuwa nimeoleka na mtu mwingine alikuwa ni mlevi. Nilimaliza shule. So ile idleness niko kwa nyumba, marafiki zangu wao pia walikuwa shaoleka. So pia mimi nikaamua maybe pia mimi nikaa na delay, nikaamua pia mimi nioleke. I was in a marriage for 1 year. Alikuwa anarudi kwa nyumba kama amelewa, anatupanisha vitu kila mahali, vita, apeani pesa ya chakula na yeye anataka chakula, so ilikuwa ngumu kwangu.
Ulikuwa how old vile uliolewa?
Nilikuwa 20. Nilikuwa naambiwa na marafiki zangu, why are you in this abusive relationship? So move away, utoke kwa hii relationship. Lakini ilikuwa very hard kwangu in that siwezi move nitoke hapa nirudi kwa wazazi wangu. Niliona kama ni aibu, utarudi aje huko. So ku make decision ili take time. Hii maisha ni ngumu. Nikaamua kurudi kwetu. Naweza rudi tu niombe msamaha kwa mzazi na anikubalie tena. Life yangu ilianza mahali fulani ilinipata through hizi training zao, wakanirudisha shule. Kunirudisha shule nikaamua kufanya tailoring. So hii token kidogo nilikuwa nanipea hii ya transport reimbursement, ndio nilichangisha hiyo pesa nikanunua nao machine. Kununua nao machine nikaanza kupata hizo orders, nashona ma uniform na fanya repair kwa nyumba. Sasa life yangu ikaanza tu kusonga, ndio nikaanza kutafuta kazi nikapata. Nashona na kampuni yenye inaitwa Lorenzo Dry Cleaner, na washona ya bags za laundry, na bado nafanya kazi yangu ingine ya kushona manguo kwa nyumba.
Kwa majina naitwa Asha Hassan, mimi ni community health volunteer, bado mimi ni mentor na mimi bado ni gender champion. Wakati nilikuwa na grow, niliona vitu mingi zikitendeka hizi za gender based violence. Sasa nikasema nikiwa mkubwa naweza taka kufanya kazi ya kusaidia wamama wale ambao hawajui haki zao, ambao yani wanapigwa tu lakini hawajui njia yenye wanaweza tumia kwenda kuripoti. This mentorship classes we started like 2 years ago, and they are not only these ones. We have 100 girls. Na some of them have changed. Unajua kuna wengine walikuwa naishi na machali zao wanawatesa, but they cannot get out of there. Wana feel tu lazima kae tu hapo. But after this mentorship classes wamegundua ya kwamba it's not a must to live in a worst relationship for them to survive. Sasa wamekuwa wengine walirudi kwao, wengine wakaenda hizo mentorship classes na wakapata job opportunities. Yeah.
Na wengine hawana strength ya kutoka hapo, lakini akipata kitu imeka busy anaweza katoka hapo. Enda tuko busy na uko kazi, ukirudi ni kufanya vitu zako, kesho yake unafikiria kazi. So watu wanafaa ku engaged na kitu yenye at least inammekia income, asikuwe that idle. Wengine unapata wamesoma yes, lakini hawajapata kazi na hiyo kenye walisomea. Like for our case, sisi tulisoma, tumeenda shule tukamaliza, lakini tulienda up tukifanya tailoring. Na hii course yetu watu wengi wanaiona kama ni course nyingine yenye haiwezi kampea pesa, na ni course nyingine mzuri sana. In that watu wajalani wajue ni nini iko ndani yake. So watu wasidharau kazi yoyote. Mtu hata akifanya hii ya kushuka nywele, bora aani hiyo pesa, ajisimamie. Wasikae kwa nyumba wakitegemea maboy. Saa hii boy, hakuna boy mwenye anataka mwanamke mwenye aleti kitu kwa nyumba. Kila mtu anataka atoke nje. Yenye huwa akileta na yeye analeta, wanabuild hiyo familia.
And as far as the cycle of gender-based violence goes, somebody who's well placed to talk about it is Mike, a project officer with Plan International who grew up in Kibera, and his life has come full circle and brought him back to being an advocate in this space.
There's a lot of difference. By then, the culture of silence was very dominant. We've been able to really amplify issues of GBV, that there's help available. We have things like toll-free numbers for counseling, even for shelters. Again, now fusing with technology in terms of medical examination. Those are things that we didn't have then, that have made it a bit easy for people who are going through gender-based violence to come out and get the help that they need.
I urge the organization to continue training wanawake na wasichana in that wapate ile maarifa yenye inaweza kwa wajenga, in that mtu akijikuta kwa situation ya gender based violence, maybe anakuwa violated, anajua venye anaweza kujitoa hapo na anajua the way forward. Kama amepata rape case, anajua mahali anaenda kureport.
Apart from empowerment, naweza sema kama these organizations zinaweza come up with a long term solution that can be of benefit to the girls and mothers in this community, so that maybe wakiwa wamekaa tu hivi wasikuwe wana feel they are worthless, they are not doing anything. They should just have something they do to make themselves independent, and to also help others wale ambao maybe they are not empowered yet.
Our programs as Plan International are developed jointly with the community members. One, we do a lot of advocacy work with the girls, moving away from just speaking for girls, and we're empowering these girls to begin to speak for themselves. And that way, you also even ensure sustainability. When Plan is no longer implementing in Kibera, you can be sure that your work will continue.
Niliamua ku-relate story yangu after kutoka kwa hiyo relationship, so nikaamua nibadilishe maisha yangu, in that nikatafuta kazi. Sasa familia yetu sasa iko stable, haina ile mashida mingi.
What do you hope for your future?
Nitakuwa na harusi next year.
You're in love?
Yes. I'm in love. I'm going to get married again. Alafu naendelea na nyumba ya mamangu. Nilienda kumjengea nyumba ushago. So hiyo nyumba nishafunika. So kenye nimebakia ni hiyo plastering, ndio ni settle na life yangu sasa.
Like Faith, Pauline is moving forward, further away from the trauma she experienced when she was in an abusive relationship. She's now using her experience to talk to many other peers who are in situations like the one she was in.
My name is Pauline Anyango. I'm 24 years old. Nimekuwa raised in Kibra. Life ijakuwa so that's good for me. Nimesoma day school huku, nikaenda mpaka class 7. Then juu ya burden home, first born mama kuna watu wengine, I have to do 1 2 3 at home. So ikabidi nitoka, I met a guys, nikaenda nikastay na Charlie almost months, masiku zikawa, but ika happen tumekuwa tukipoa vizuri, but anything nikaenda kuuliza kitu saka kuja nile habit ya kunipiga. So you see, so me alikuwa anaweza community manze kunipiga. Mabeste nenda ku approach stick, that's love. Huyo boy anakupenda zaidi. So that's what I used to get from other friends. It may happen almost a year now. Nimestay na yeye nikashika ball. So I thought he's going to cater for me for my baby. Mwanaume anakamkama amelewa, hataki kujua na kulaje, analetea wasichana wengine kwa nyumba. So you see that really gonna pressure, niko stress, nikakuja nikambisika ndio alikuja kanipiga. Nikaanza kubleed kwenda kwa usi, nika as in I really feel so bad. So nikakuja nikatoka nikarudi kwa madhe akaniambia nikae home until nikakuja nikamit a friend of mine. The same friend ananiambia the same story like yangu, namwambia ai kumbe yangu basi yangu ni kidogo, yake imekuwa so long. Nime engage into Plan International after kujua nimekata kwenda meeting, nika learn more na wao, nikajua what is GBV, vile mtu anafaa kufanya. Kufika pale napata mademo anaongelea kudhulumiwa whatever. Nili feel like haya kumbe naweza kuwa na say kwa mwanaume.
I have seen girls rewriting their stories, and for instance, I'm going to share about Faith. It's until she came to one of my meetings and she had, how I was talking and addressing issues of gender-based violence, and she felt everything I was saying relates to her personal experience. And from there, we started walking a journey, coupled with some life skills training that I was conducting all through and supporting them. The girls came out, finished the courses. Most of them, we managed to get them into a placement, for apprenticeship, and eventually they got jobs. You look at Faith today, you can't believe she's a survivor of gender-based violence.
Yeah.
And we're able to come together and see how best we can support these girls in terms of giving them opportunities to go back to school, in terms of those who are in need even for seed capital. There's some organizations that are out there. So we do a lot of linkages, and then those girls are able to get the help that they require to be able to stand on their 2 feet and move forward.
Yes, nilipelekwa shule nikafanya catering because nilipenda. Actually nililipass, I did a neck exam, nikapita, nikakuja nika-apply kazi mtaani. At least hiyo hustle nika busy, and then pia nikafikiria hiyo busy ya high sport. Someone alinintroduce. Sasa naichukwanga box ni 350, napata yote kisha ni 600. Profit yangu ni 250. Si inanisaidia mimi kimsichana. Yes.
From gender desks in police stations to the court systems, many cases brought before courts for gender-based violence, for example here in Kibera, often drag out, sometimes for years. And in many ways, this means delayed justice for survivors of GBV.
At our office, roughly in a month, we receive between 30 to 35 cases in a month. Most of the cases vary from physical assault, defilement, there's rape, and then there's maybe the major one is about child support or maintenance. For us, we put it as part of, because for the children, it's violating their right. Perpetrators sometimes will surprise. Somebody will never expected to be the perpetrator, they come out and become perpetrators. Most of the time it's people that are very close to the survivor, very close. So it's never a single kind of nature of a person, but generally anyone. For us we say anyone is a perpetrator.
And it's men and women who
it's
show
men,
up.
yes, it's men and women. It's not one gender.
When they come into this room, the GBV room, what usually we look into, it's not just the physical injuries, the psychological, like counseling. We have to arrange for counseling session. We might not be able to start it immediately, but we have to do what you call that, the pre-counseling session, so that you prepare her. From there, she can open up and tell you so many things of what she's been going through.
For us, all criminal cases must go to court. We have lawyers that go to courts and they represent survivors for free. Really liaise closely with court officers to make sure that survivors get legal representation that is proper. So depending at what level we receive a case, for us the first thing is to first the wellness of the survivor. We want to understand where she comes from. Is it safe or she needs to be taken to a shelter? Then secondly, the evidence, because we want this case to proceed. We help them to make sure that they preserve as much as evidence as they can.
Psychological and emotional violence always go together. You'll find somebody is not in the mind of like the one to tell you exactly what happened, but at the end of the day, you'll have to find a way of how you're going to get the information from them so that you can be able to do a good medical report for them to be able to get justice and at the end of the day, closure. When it comes to children, it's usually a little bit tricky and very hard because you cannot force a child to talk. And once she shuts down, there's no case.
We've had people that go to court and freeze. They can't speak, they're just crying. After just introducing their names, they see the other perpetrator, the other side, and they go numb. And especially children. And unfortunately, our courts, most of them don't have the children boxes where the children can use to testify.
You actually are the person who looks at people, not the statistics. You actually deal with the people.
With the people, yeah.
So then what is it that's missing, the missing links that are enabling the pattern of GBV, and how can they be addressed?
When arrest has to be done, the perpetrators have to be arrested. Sometimes we don't get the cooperation we need from the police and the law enforcers. So you find that the perpetrator will be arrested, something somewhere in between there will happen, and then they're released. That's one. Two, the cases when they go to court, they usually take too long. The survivor and the caregivers and the family will give up. Thank God in Kibera, an organization like AMREF, where I'm working, we usually follow up on these cases and ensure that we follow them to the last date and ensure that justice has been served to these people so that they get closure. And with our justice system and judiciary system, there's a lot of corruption. So sometimes you find that if they find that there's nobody following up on these cases are thrown out. And then these perpetrators go back to the society, and then they continue doing whatever they were doing because they say, after all, ulinipeleka kotini, nothing was done. The biggest problem is the kind of bond these perpetrators are given.
The kind of bond?
Yes, sometimes you find a case, somebody is given that they're told they're given a bond of 50,000 to come out. Now, if the family is capable of doing that, or if the 50,000, 100,000, some magistrates, malicious magistrates, do reduce these bonds even up to 30,000. And these are sexual offenses. So you see that we need to have these laws reviewed. I think the penalty should be a bit higher. It shouldn't be just what we have been having from before and no review has been done.
I don't know if the court system can do anything, maybe to create courts that can help survivors of GBV. That will go a long way in helping us to understand or to get survivors get justice.
We have sufficient policies, even laws in this country to address most of these issues of gender-based violence. But how is the implementation? Who is tracking the implementation? And when you dig deeper, why is the implementation so poor? Then you realize it's issues of budgeting.
The biggest gap we have is somebody was defiled and then they have to go back to where this defilement took place and don't going to be safe. As the case keeps on dragging, anything can happen to this person who was defiled and their family. The biggest problem we also have with these cases is poverty. Because of poverty, the perpetrator's family might come and say that you're going to pay you this amount, and then you don't go on with this case through what you call ADR, Alternative Dispute Resolution.
You cannot eliminate gender-based violence on your own. Regardless of the resources that you have, you need other partners to come on board.
I would love to rewrite the story of survivors by first and foremost, if only we could have a society whereby we were all living as a life whereby some people don't lack too much and some people have too much, some people don't have. The men could decide to be our keepers, be the ones to take care of us, don't be the ones to hurt us. Don't feel like we are so privileged. We are not. We are so underprivileged and we have so much going on in our lives.
In a society that is progressive with its use of technology and also seeks to uphold human rights, there are too many glaring gaps in how gender-based violence is addressed. From the court system to the arresting of perpetrators to the trauma and psychosocial support required by survivors. We have the policies in place, but the implementation is still blurred and still inconsistent. Here are some recommendations on screen that were actually pointed out by the Cabinet Secretary for the Gender Ministry. There's also a national toll number that survivors can use anytime, yet still the numbers are on the rise. And we need to look behind the numbers and realize that there are people who are so traumatized, children, men and women, and that it's not enough to keep talking about statistics. What's important now is addressing every case and seeing to it that justice is served, psychosocial support is given, and that safe houses become part and parcel of the reforms needed to address gender-based violence. I'm Janet Mbugua. This is Rewrite Her Story with Plan International and Inua Dada Foundation. Let's keep the conversation going online. Let's continue to hold policymakers accountable and hold each other accountable as well.